The $34 trillion U.S. debt clock is spinning out of control, adding millions every minute. Let's break down why this crisis exists, how it got this bad, the endless borrowing problem. Think of the U.S. government like someone with a maxed-out credit card, except this card has no real limit. Every year, Washington spends more than it collects in taxes, and the gap is covered by borrowing. That gap is called the budget deficit, and it's been happening for decades. Politicians avoid tough choices like cutting popular programs or raising taxes because neither wins votes. So, the debt just keeps growing. Today, interest payments alone cost hundreds of billions each year, making it one of the largest expenses in the federal budget. Imagine paying more on your credit card interest than your rent. That's America's situation. The weight of mandatory spending. Here's something most Americans don't realize. A huge chunk of government spending is basically on autopilot. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are written into law, and they keep expanding as the population ages. Every day, about 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 and qualify for benefits. That's a tidal wave of retirees drawing from the system while fewer workers are paying in. Healthcare costs add fuel to the fire, rising faster than wages or economic growth. Cutting these programs? Politically toxic, but keeping them unchanged? Financially dangerous. It's a classic catch-22 that keeps America locked into more debt. Tax cuts. Without the cuts in spending. Here's where things get messy. Over the past few decades, presidents from both parties have signed off on big tax cuts. Think Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, George W. Bush in the 2000s, and Donald Trump in 2017. Cutting taxes can boost the economy in the short run. But here's the kicker. The government rarely cuts spending at the same time. That means less money coming in, but the same or more money going out. It's like quitting your side hustle but keeping your Netflix, gym, and Amazon Prime subscriptions. The result? More borrowing, more deficits, and yes, more debt. The Pentagon price tag. America spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan alone cost an estimated $6 trillion when you add in long-term care for veterans and interest payments. And that's not even counting today's massive defense budget, which hovers around $850 billion a year. Of course, national security matters, but critics argue that endless wars, overpriced weapons programs, and military bases around the globe add up to debt we can't afford. The Pentagon's price tag is a heavy anchor on America's finances. Crisis spending. From 2008 to COVID, sometimes debt spikes fast, almost overnight. In 2008, the financial crisis forced Washington to bail out banks and pump money into the economy by adding hundreds of billions to the debt. Fast forward to 2020, when COVID-19 shut everything down. The government rolled out massive relief packages, stimulus checks, unemployment boosts, and aid for small businesses. In total, about $5 trillion was spent fighting the pandemic's economic fallout. Was it necessary? Many economists say yes. It kept the economy afloat. But the price tag was enormous, and the debt didn't shrink afterward. Instead, it became the new normal level of spending. Interest. The bill we can't escape. Here's the scariest part. The U.S. now spends more on interest payments than it does on entire federal departments. In 2024 alone, interest costs crossed $1 trillion, more than the budget for defense or Medicare. And unlike other expenses, there's no negotiating with lenders. You can't call up China or Japan, the biggest foreign holders of U.S. debt, and ask for a discount. Rising interest rates from the Federal Reserve have made this problem worse. Every new dollar borrowed today comes with a higher price tag tomorrow. It's the ultimate money trap, borrowing to pay for yesterday's borrowing. Debt ceiling drama and political gridlock. Every few years, Congress plays chicken with the debt ceiling, threatening a U.S. default not because we can't pay, but because politicians can't agree. In 2011, the standoff got so bad that S&P downgraded America's credit rating for the first time ever, and borrowing costs jumped. We've seen shutdowns, last-minute deals, and kick-the-can fixes that dodge real reforms. Markets hate uncertainty, and taxpayers pay for it through higher interest rates. Instead of setting a long-term budget plan, Washington lurches from crisis to crisis. The message to investors: America is reliable until Congress decides it isn't. That uncertainty adds dollars to the debt. Demographics and healthcare, the price of getting older. America is aging fast. As baby boomers retire, more people collect Social Security and Medicare while fewer workers pay in. That alone strains the budget, but healthcare inflation makes it worse. The U.S. spends a bigger share of GDP on healthcare than any other developed nation, and costs often rise faster than wages. Medicare isn't just paying for more people, it's paying higher prices for hospital stays, drugs, and long-term care. Reforms like raising the retirement age or changing benefit formulas are politically explosive, so the path of least resistance wins. Borrow more. The math is simple: more seniors, pricier care, bigger deficits, tax breaks, and hidden spending. Here's something most folks never see: tax expenditures. These are the loopholes, credits, and deductions baked into the tax code. Things like the mortgage interest deduction, child tax credit, or corporate write-offs. On paper, they look like tax relief. In reality, they act like government spending, just hidden in the tax system. The government collects less money, but still owes the same bills. In 2023, tax expenditures cost over $1.3 trillion, nearly the size of the entire federal discretionary budget. Few politicians touch them because voters love their deductions, but every break adds to the long-term debt problem. Disasters, wars, and unexpected bills. The U.S. doesn't just borrow for planned programs. It borrows when disaster strikes. Hurricanes like Katrina or wildfires in California mean billions in emergency aid. Then there's the price tag of long wars, like Iraq and Afghanistan, which ballooned past $6 trillion once veteran care and interest were added. Add bailouts for industries, from banks in 2008 to airlines in 2020, and you see a pattern. Every crisis gets funded with debt. While emergencies feel unavoidable, the cost doesn't vanish after the headlines fade. Instead, it lingers in America's debt clock, ticking upward, one catastrophe at a time: waste, fraud, and inefficiency. Here's a frustrating truth: not all debt comes from essential spending. Billions are lost every year to fraud, waste, and government inefficiency. Think duplicate programs across federal agencies, contractors overcharging for simple supplies, or benefits paid out by mistake. A famous example: the Pentagon once paid $640 for a toilet seat. While these numbers are smaller compared to trillion-dollar budgets, they chip away at trust in government spending. When taxpayers see their money wasted, support for reforms drops. Fixing inefficiency won't solve the debt crisis alone, but it's like a leaking faucet. Ignore enough drips, and suddenly you've got a flood. Trade deficits and global borrowing. The U.S. doesn't just borrow from itself, it borrows from the world. Countries like China and Japan hold trillions in U.S. Treasury bonds. Why? Because America runs huge trade deficits, buying more from abroad than it sells. Foreign nations recycle those dollars back into U.S. debt. On one hand, it's kept interest rates lower. On the other, it makes America dependent on outside investors. If confidence ever wavers, say a political crisis or default scare, foreign buyers could pull back. That would force the U.S. to pay higher interest or print more money, both of which add fuel to the debt fire.